Welcome back to the Broad Street Sports Podcast featuring Zachary Chaby, and today we'll be doing our Week 2 reactions on today's episode, going from Thursday Night Football to Sunday Night Football and giving our prediction for tonight's Falcons-Eagles Monday Night Football game. Starting off with Thursday Night Football, the game that me and Spino talked about on Thursday just before it happened, the Bills and Dolphins. Utter dominance from the Bills, winning 31-10. I knew they were going to win the game. I didn't know it was going to be that crazy, but the story that has to be talked about the most, Tua suffering another concussion in that game. Prayers up for him. Hopefully he's okay, and it's already come out that he's made the decision that he has no plans on retiring. That's completely his decision. Whatever he wants to do, it is his life. It is what he values in his future. Just hopefully he stays safe and nothing terrible happens to him, but going into actual game action, before Tua was even hurt, he had 3 interceptions, wasn't playing his best ball, and the Bills defense completely shut them down. The Bills were firing on all cylinders on offense. James Cook had 3 touchdowns. Josh Allen did what he needed to do. Shakir had some big catches, and they got the win at the end of the day. So, but good win by the Bills. They are currently 2-0 on the season, and who knows, if they can play well and fire on all cylinders, they could be a threat in the AFC. Probably now in the AFC North, they could easily win it. Moving on to the Sunday 1 o'clock games, we had an upset, in my opinion, between the Vikings and Niners. Vikings take the game against the Niners in Minnesota again this year. Sam Darnold was great. Got it to his receivers when he needed to, and had a perfect pass to Justin Jefferson for a 97-yard touchdown, and they got the win at the end of the day. Brock Purdy had an interception. Jordan Mason got in the end zone but fumbled. Deebo Samuel had a good game. Ayuk not involved again this week, and George Kittle bounced back and had a good week. But overall, the Vikings did what they needed to do. They controlled the ball, controlled the clock, and got the win. So good win for them, and they're currently 2-0 in the season 2. And the Niners, we'll just see how they move from here, moving on to week 3. Moving on to the next game, Seahawks and Patriots. Seahawks winning in overtime 23-20. DK Metcalf and Jackson Smith-Njigba look like a great wide receiver duo, both going over 100 yards. DK with that big 60-yard touchdown. He was pretty much left wide open. But the Patriots, I will say, I'm very, very surprised by them. They've been playing very competitive ball, beating the Bengals this week and then keeping it close with the Seahawks. They've surprised me so far, but they did what they needed to do. And the Patriots, if they can get the right players in there, they could have a future. I feel like Gerard Mayo is already bringing in new culture, bringing in a new system for this team, and if they could just keep building off that, the future is very bright for this team. But the Seahawks get the win and get themselves to 2-0. Moving on to the next game, Giants and Commanders. The Giants cleaned themselves up a lot more this week. Daniel Jones looked a whole lot better and was able to get Malik Nabers very much involved in the offense. He had over 100 yards in his first career NFL touchdown. But for the Commanders, it was literally field goals for them. Every single point was a field goal from their kicker they signed a couple weeks ago, Austin Seibert. He was 7 for 7, did what he needed to do. But for the Commanders, I feel like that strategy is not going to work for them at all this year. It's not going to work for them every week, but it did this week. But in my honest opinion, this game, it's just going to be between the 3rd and 4th place teams in the NFC East. But just an interesting game. But the Commanders ended up winning it at the end. And Malik Nabers, like I said, had a good game, but ended up dropping probably the most important ball towards the end of the game, dropping that pass on 3rd down that made the Giants force them to kick 3, and Graham Gano being hurt, the kicker missing the field goal, and it led to the Commanders winning the game. That was pretty much the deciding factor there. Moving on to the next game, the Chargers and Panthers. First, before I talk about the Chargers and what they were able to do on the offensive end, the Panthers are an utter dumpster fire. They just announced today that they're benching Bryce Young. The number 1 overall pick in last year's draft is already getting benched for Andy Dalton. How much does that have to show you that they are a dysfunctional franchise, and they might even be the Chicago White Sox of the NFL? They are utterly terrible. They cannot get anything going, and it's just a disgrace to watch. But they just keep showing that they are disgrace of a franchise. Traded McCaffrey, traded DJ Moore, traded Brian Burns, and didn't even get a first-round pick for it. They had to trade first-round picks, or they had to give more and got less, pretty much. in essence. So like they're just a dysfunctional franchise, and I see no future for them whatsoever. They could be the worst team for years. They could be a bottom feeder for years to come. But let's talk about the Chargers. They're 2-0 in the season, got another great win. J.K. Dobbins is looking like the number one back. Another 100-yard day for him. Herbert's look good. He finally looks like he has a head coach that he likes and respects, and Harbaugh. And the Chargers got the win at the end of the day, and they're 2-0. Good for them. Moving on to the game that I know surprised most of the NFL world. Wow, the Saints do it again. They scored 47 on the Panthers last week. Everyone thought that was just the Panthers. They won't do it again. They did it again all right, and they did it in rousing fashion against the Cowboys in Dallas. Kamara, 4 touchdowns, unbelievable. Anyone who had him in fantasy, good for you. And the Cowboys, Prescott looked like he's already in prime playoff form, had 2 interceptions, and you can say whatever you want about the receiver slipping. He did, but Dak Prescott's just going to make a better throw, and the offense was so dysfunctional. The defense is already looking like it's also in prime playoff form, and it's just looking like if this continues, giving Dak that $60 million contract is going to look even worse and worse, and Micah Parsons was a no-show. CeeDee Lamb had that touchdown, and that was it. And it was just a really dysfunctional game for the Cowboys. Derek Carr had an amazing game. He got a big deep pass to Rashid Shaheed for like a 70-yard touchdown. Was able to get it to Olave this game, which is huge for them. And for the Saints, they're just going to keep building off this. And having the Eagles next week, being an Eagles fan, I'm a little bit worried about that, especially if A.J. Brown doesn't play, which he's not playing tonight, is questionable for next week. So we'll have to see, and it's in New Orleans. But New Orleans, so far, they've done what they needed to do, and they've looked really good doing it. Moving on to the next game, the Colts and the Packers. The Packers, they were able to get the job done without Jordan Love. Malik Willis did what he needed to do, got the ball where he needed it to, got a good pass to Romeo Doubs late. Josh Jacobs was able to run tremendously on the ground, and the defense for the Packers stepped up again. At this time, actually, for the win. Anthony Richardson threw 3 interceptions, which is terrible. It just shows more and more and more that he is a good rushing quarterback, but he has still so much to develop for a passing game, and we'll just have to see what he does from that. But, I mean, the Packers got the win after last week, and if they can win a couple of games before Jordan Love comes back, they'll be very much in a prime position to be in the playoffs this year. Moving on to the next game, the Browns and Jaguars. I'll be honest with you, I didn't see much of this game, but the Browns ended up getting the win after last week getting demolished by the Cowboys, ended up getting the job done. The Jaguars are 0-2. Both these teams are quarterbacks are very much overrated, and Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. Trevor Lawrence is just showing that he is another quarterback who did not deserve the contract he got. He is not that good. At this point, I don't even rate him a top 15 QB. Doug Peterson's a good head coach, and Trevor Lawrence is just not doing what needs to be done. He has a good offense, but he's just not doing what needs to be done. And the Jaguars are 0-2, and the Browns got the win. There's not much to explain about that. Moving on to the next game, the Jets and Titans. Before we talk about what happened in this game, we got to talk about Will Levis again, making another questionable play in that game, trying to extend the play, flipping the ball to Tajay Spears and resulting in a fumble. That's back-to-back weeks. He's cost them games with questionable turnovers, and at this point, I don't know what he's doing. They had a great offseason, and now they're looking at themselves at 0-2, and a lot of question for 2 games they could have easily won. But the Jets, talking about the game itself, the Jets were able to do what they were able to do in getting the win. Breece Hall had a good game. Rodgers got the ball to Garrett Wilson when he needed to and got it to these other receivers. And the Jets, after a bad first week of the season last week, were able to bounce back and get a great win this week against the Titans. But again, with Will Levis, he's got to stop making those questionable decisions if he wants to be the Titans' franchise quarterback. Moving on to the next game, you have the Buccaneers and Lions. The Buccaneers, another team in the NFC South, they got themselves to 2-0 with a win over the Lions. Baker Mayfield did what he needed to do, played a great game, and Chris Godwin, had over 100 yards. He had a great game. He was able to carry them throughout the game with Mike Evans not having the best of games, but was able to do what he needed to do. And then for the Lions side, they scored 16 points, but Jared Goff had 2 very bad interceptions in very vulnerable positions. And Dan Campbell, I was watching the highlights yesterday earlier today. He went for it on 4th down and 9 when they had 3 timeouts and just under a minute left. In my personal opinion, I would have kicked the ball there. You might as well put it on your defense more, because say you get a stop there, you're only down by 1. You would only need a field goal to win the game in that point. And your defense had only let up 20 points at that point. And if they got one more stop, you had a chance of winning the game. But that's just Dan Campbell for you. He's very risky. He'll do whatever he wants to do. But, I mean, the Buccaneers did what they needed to do, got the win, and very much so. The Saints and them could be very, very neck and neck for this NFC South this year. Moving on to the final 1 o'clock game, we had the Raiders and Ravens. The Ravens were up 10 in this game. I was thinking probably, they're just going to get a nice bounce back win after losing to the Chiefs, but no, the Raiders come storming back. Gardner Minshew just forms a crazy connection with Davante Adams down the stretch. Brock Bowers had a big game, 9 catches for over 90 yards, and the Raiders were able to come back and get the win, and the Ravens are 0-2, last in the division with the Bengals, which is very, very concerning in my opinion. There's back-to-back weeks. Last week, it's a tough opponent. Starting the season, Arrowhead is always tough. But then going home and losing to the Raiders, who the Chargers just beat the week before, is very concerning for me. And I've seen this all over. People who think Lamar is better than Herbert, I don't know. Because Lamar makes a lot of questionable decisions. You could even see at the final play, if he really wanted to, he had a chance at a touchdown with his rushing. Lamar just doesn't know what to do down the stretch and makes very questionable decisions. He gets very much out of his comfort zone, and that's what's concerning for me for the Ravens and why I feel they can never win a Super Bowl while he's the quarterback. Moving on to the 4 o'clock games, the Cardinals and Rams, that was just utter domination by the Cardinals, and what the Cardinals were able to do is what will help them down the stretch if they're able to do this at a consistent level. Getting Marvin Harrison the ball is the reason they can win games this season. You just saw it yesterday. Marvin had 2 touchdowns in the first 2 drives. He is an electric receiver. He is a one-of-one player. He's a special kind of kid, and I feel like he could just keep balling out with that team. Kyler Murray has looked great so far the first 2 weeks. Last week they didn't get the win, but this week they came winning in resounding fashion, where it was able to get the win, and Kyler Murray's looked great. Marvin Harrison's looked great. Connors looked great. McBride had a good game. And the Rams just got destroyed on the offensive end. They lost Nakua, and then it just came out a couple minutes ago that Kupp might land on the IR, which is huge for them because that's 2 of the receivers done. It's usually been the case. One's been out, one's been in. But if Cooper Kupp is on the IR too, I don't know what the Rams are going to do at the receiving position. But, I mean, the good win for the Cardinals. They just completely asserted their dominance and were able to win the game. Moving on to the 425 CBS game, it was the Bengals and Chiefs. And the Bengals looked a whole lot better this week against the Chiefs. It's just they weren't able to get the win at the end of the day. And the Chiefs were, but more concerning for the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco got hurt in that game, and they're projected for him. It's a fibula injury, and they're projected for him to miss 6 to 8 weeks, which would be very much huge for them. But they're having Kareem Hunt in for a visit. But talking about the game itself, Joe Burrow looked a whole lot better, was able to get some passing touchdowns on the board. Jamar Chase was completely non-relevant in the offense, only had a couple catches, and then had that play where he complained to the ref and they got a penalty because of it. But at the end of the day, the Bengals went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs again, but just weren't able to get the win. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs are 2-0 and just show again that they're one of the toughest teams to beat, especially at home. Moving on to the Steelers and Broncos, just looking at the score of this game, it seems very, very boring. But the Steelers were able to win again with Justin Fields as the starting QB. He was able to do it for them. He's 2-0 now. And I feel like if he can win again, I would start him the rest of the season and just maybe have Russell Wilson as the backup. Even if he doesn't like it, you want to put the best quarterback out there every single week. And if that's Justin Fields for you, you put out Justin Fields. But at the end of the day, Steelers got the win. Broncos, Bo Nix looked a little bit better, I saw. But Steelers did what they needed to do. Moving on to Sunday Night Football, we had the Texans and Bears. The Texans got the win by 6 points. But the real story of this game, I think C.J. Stroud played well, but Caleb Williams was terrible in this game, and he has not been great so far. Don't get me wrong, I know it's been 2 games, but I've seen really nothing out of him in the first 2 games, and that he is the number 1 pick in the draft, being compared as one of the next great quarterbacks of our league. He barely can throw the ball over 20 yards, and he has great receivers that can catch the ball. I know Keenan Allen was out last night, but you have DJ Moore. You drafted Rome Odunze, number 9. You have Cole Kmet, but it just seems like he's just dumping it off to DeAndre Swift every time, and it's either Swift getting a couple yards or he's getting killed. Like, he's getting destroyed because Caleb Williams will throw it behind the line of scrimmage, and they'll just know what they're doing. The Bears' offense seems very one-dimensional, and if Caleb Williams, I don't think, does not realize he is not a pocket QB. He cannot handle the blitz whatsoever. He doesn't know how to disguise it. He doesn't know how to adjust to it. He just seems like he has no idea what he's doing so far, and it's very concerning. They just scored their first offensive touchdown just as the end of the half last night with Khalil Herbert. It's very concerning for me, and I feel like if Caleb Williams doesn't show strides next week or the following week, it's going to be very concerning. And if I were a Bears fan, I'd be concerned so far. I know you're 1-1, but at the same time, Caleb Williams has not shown why he was the number 1 pick. Now, moving on to Monday Night Football, we had the Falcons and the Eagles tonight at 8:15. I've thought a lot about this game, and I was feeling very confident going into it, but currently stated, I'm a little bit nervous right now, especially with losing A.J. Brown for the game. He's not going to be playing. I know Smitty's a great receiver, but really, the Falcons, they didn't play their best ball last week, and I feel like coming off a week like they did it in the home opener against the Steelers, they're going to be a whole lot more hungry this week. Bijan Robinson is a great running back. If they can get Kyle Pitts involved in the offense, they could do great things for him. And I think just losing A.J. Brown for the Eagles is bigger than what people are talking about. I know the Eagles have a good offense, got Saquon Barkley, had Devontae Smith, got the Jahad Dotson. But I just feel like losing A.J. Brown, like I said, could be the deciding factor. And I know a lot of people are going to be shocked by this. I think the Falcons will win tonight. I know it's Kirk Cousins in primetime, but I honestly think the Falcons, if they can get offense sustained going, and the Eagles just look look stale on offense like they did last week, it could very much be a completely different story of last week. Because last week the Eagles' offense started very stale, and the Packers were not able to take advantage as much as they wanted to. I could see the Falcons taking very much advantage of this, and the Falcons' defense is very underrated. They traded for Matt Judon. They have Justin Simmons. They have Jesse Bates. Have AJ Terrell. They have good players in there, and I just think they could get the win tonight. And this pains me as an Eagles fan. I just think the Falcons will win tonight's game by the final score of 31-27. I know this might shock a lot of you, but I just have a feeling that a loss is in the air, and we'll just have to see. But that's my reactions to Week 1 and what I expect for tonight's Monday Night Football game. Other than that, if you have any question, or if you got anything you guys want to say in the comments, let me know. Other than that, you guys have a good rest of your day. Enjoy tonight's game.